This is just a test. I'm doing a little test here, and we'll see how it goes. But it starts out, this is the question. Can you cure all mental illness? And how? Is it even possible? Or is it something that will have to be managed with medication for the rest of one's life? And a half-hearted attempt to live in foggy days and slip-slide back and forth into these phases of either bipolar swings or extreme down depression, manic depressiveness, where you're almost feeling bedridden, and if you do somehow able to pull the strength by the back of your collar and make it to work, you might come home and feel like you need to be in bed for the rest of that evening, or you're glued to the computer because you just are wandering with your mind because you don't feel mentally motivated to do anything in your life. And you just want to live like that for the rest of your life. Well, first off, I want to say I am not a medical practitioner. These are just my opinions, and from the research I have done, the help I have gotten from good people like Dr. Siegel, which I will talk about him sometime down the road. I'm a former mentally ill person, and I'm not, I'm not saying I'm totally sane. The people that knew me before and know me now have seen a dramatic change. I almost seem to most people like a totally different person. And it has improved my life, my quality of life, and you might almost say game-changing. And I know that I have a lot more to be going in this direction. More things can be changed. Sometime when you lived your life that way for a long, long time, you gain a mindset and habits that need to be kind of tweaked and worked out because they're patterns of behavior that sometimes you may fall back into some of those similar habits or patterns. But the good thing is with the news of neuroplasticity is that the brain is changeable, and these changes are permanent. But I believe the first step is a person admitting that there's a problem. You have to know there's a problem before you can fix it or change it. And there's a lot of negative stigma attached to mental illness. So I understand the apprehension, that can go with admitting this problem. But you wouldn't be here watching this video of mine if you weren't aware that there was some changes needed. But one of the most things that's important also to realize is that one size does not fit all. Each person's situation is not the same. So a lot of things that may work for someone may not totally be the exact protocol for another person. Someone said that they were taking 500 milligrams of rhodiola, this adaptogenic herb, 3 times, 500 milligrams 3 times a day. That may work for them. Or St. John's may work for another person. but it may not work for you. In fact, your body may reject it. It may not be anything. And really, taking an herb for the problem is no different than taking a pharmaceutical. You're going to take that herb for the rest of your life. You're going to take a pharmaceutical for the rest of your life. Then you may be not addressing the root cause. There's causes to these problems. And if you address the root cause, you could cure the problem. So there's different things that are aspects, like branches of a tree. They go back to the main trunk, and there's stems. There's the main trunk, or the problems. You follow them back, and ones I believe is a main root cause of all mental illness is toxicity. And I'm not just trying to speak in my case, but in my case, I know that this was the case. And I would have never, even in my wildest dreams, come to this conclusion by myself. You know, Dr. Siegel has taught me so much. And, you know, and because of me living my life the way I had to live it, a very limited, a very handicapped, and unproductive life, struggling with a huge monster on my back, day in and day out, is why I want to tell anyone and everyone I can that there's hope. When you can actually start using your mind in a way that you always wished to, with more focus and more clarity and more control over who you are. You know, and I'm not, I have room to grow. I know that there's more I can be doing. I'm very new in this. I have not been cured long. But I had a very serious thing that happened to me. So it wasn't just the mental aspect. I had a lot of physical things, which I had talked about my problem in another video. What all happened to me, some of my past and my life, and it was rough childhood too. There was a combination of things that compounded the problem and made it much more, complex situation. So, and we know with psychology and mental illness, there is a psychological factor involved. And no matter what situation it is, if your brain's not functioning right, your nervous system is more sensitive, your emotions are out of whack, everything that happens to you, whether it's an abuse of some sort or anything, no matter what kind of almost perfect, half-perfect life you lived, probably you could have had, things could have affected you worse than someone else. And maybe it would have caused, more psychological issues compounding your problem. But that is not the root of the problem. The root, like I'm going back to number one cause, I feel, is toxicity. And that would be focusing on neurotoxins. two main ones are mercury and lead, but there is many, many neurotoxins. And when the brain's not functioning properly, it's going to affect a lot of things, and that's going to be the root cause of why there's a chemical imbalance. And when your body's overloaded with neurotoxins, untoxins, it's going to not be able to produce chemicals, and it's going to throw things off whack, and the whole body system is going to be not in sync. So but I can not just want to tell you this. I just don't want to tell you this off the top of my head and off a whim and just my opinions only. But in a later date, I would like to, have a breakdown to protocols, what kind of people are doing what, and what kind of testimonials of people that have been cured, and these doctors throughout the history that have used, trying to look at some of my notes here, whether it's, vitamin therapy, I can't think of the big word for it, but the center thing is there's tests that need to be done, and whether it's somebody doing a type of test on you to find out what the root cause is, whether it's a hair test, blood test, an advanced form of kinesiology, which is what Dr. Siegel uses. Then the body, you can find out specifically what this body is needing. This human being, different from Joe Schmo or somebody else, what's wrong going on here? What is the toxicity level of mercury, of lead, of any other neurotoxin or other toxins in the body? What vitamins are you lacking because of this? When there's too much lead or mercury in the body, some of these things like, I believe it is mercury, that when mercury is high, no, it's lead. When lead is high, it fills this part of your body needs different nutrients, and zinc fills a certain molecule whole, like a piece of a puzzle. But when you have too high of a toxin that is closely related on a molecular level, it fits kind of into that slot. Then your body is already got that slot filled, so the trace mineral that is needed is ignored and is not absorbed because there's too much of this this toxin that's there that's taking the place of the good nutrient. So all the zinc in the world you take, if you have too high of a level of a certain toxin that's filling its void spot, then it's going to just flush the zinc right out of your system. And then you're not going to be getting those nutrients and that help from that mineral that your body needs. And that's vital maybe on a mental capacity. So then you'll be lacking in that mineral or that vitamin or whatever. So there's a reason why, someone's, of course, if they're real nervous, they're burning their B vitamins. So there's different reasons for different things lacking in the body, whether it's zinc lacking because the void is filled with a toxin, or if your nervous system is burning your B vitamins at a very fast rate, until this body gets cleared up and it's working properly, if we don't take care of the root cause, you could be taking large amounts of B vitamins forever, and you're really no different than taking a pharmaceutical. Why is the reason why your body's needing these high doses of B vitamins? Why? Is it just because you're nervous by nature? And there's no reason behind it. I don't believe so. I believe there's a reason for your body being the way it is. Whether it's the same reason as mine or not. We want to get down to the root causes of problems. So, there's many things that are important. Diet's important. You fuel a body with the proper nutrients, especially if it's you want to get rid of the toxic load, or else a lot of good nutrients are going to have a limited productive effect or good effect on your body. But our diet is very important, and there's many books, many protocols that are testimonials to this fact. People being healed and cured, whether it's stuff like Natasha Campbell McBride that has to do with the gut and psychology syndrome, which was one of the first things that I did research before I found Dr. Siegel many years ago, when I was hunting because I knew in '06 there had got to be another way. So I had spent a lot of time in research, and that was the first thing I did, not knowing anything else, as I stopped drinking pop and cutting back on my sugar intake dramatically, and eating a lot of whole, good, natural, whole foods. And I even went raw vegan for a while. But what might work for one person may not be what works for another. But there may be a lot of good benefit and reasons on that, and you may still want to go be raw for a couple days a week, But I find the paleo diet works best for me, and that's something that Dr. Siegel promotes more. But and in that situation, you want a nutrient-dense diet full of macronutrients, because that's going to help produce the right chemicals and feed the brain. Egg yolks, oil, coconut oil, good fats. Coconut oil is one, of good fats, as well as avocados and good animal, grass-fed beef. But there's many people that, I want to introduce you to. When it comes to Toxicity, the first man, and it doesn't, man or woman, doctors, people, the first person that I would recommend reading up on is Gary Gordon, Dr. Gary Gordon. He's probably the most top qualified man on detoxification. And I have one book of his, and I've done a lot of research on the net and other things of his, and I'd like to get more of his information and study more. I have a lot more reading to do and a lot more studying to do, but I just want to get this out there, that there's different levels in the process of healing. Dr. Siegel uses frequencies. We are frequency beings. The earth has a heartbeat. Schumann's resonance. everything resonates at a frequency. Our liver, our kidneys, us as a human, a blade of grass, we all have a frequency, and thoughts have frequencies. If you're getting down to a more quantum level, at a very smaller, after you go past the atom, and you're thinking what we're all made of. We all vibrate at frequencies, but it's kind of complicated. But I'm doing a lot of research on frequencies too, which is something that I want to understand better. But detoxifying, in one form or another, it should be a very important thing in everyone's life today, because we are living in a very toxic world. And especially those of us that have had or are mentally ill and want to get better and don't want to go backwards. Detoxification needs to be a regular part of anyone's life today in this planet. There's no place safe from toxicity. The Antarctic, both poles. Nowhere, there's no place on the planet Earth. They found flame retardant toxicity from the stuff that's used for flame retardation, that's used in children's, infants' pajamas, and other toxicity in the poles, both ends of the polar caps. There's no place on the planet that you can go that's truly toxic-free anymore, this day and age. So, there's neurotoxins everywhere. Burning coal in China, some of that effects from that can end up in another area of the world, and then they're breathing in this lead or other heavy metals or whatever. So toxicity is definitely an important thing. So learning to adapt a protocol, whether it's something that you with a frequency, or it's to pull out a detoxification, which someone that would be doing an FCT like Dr. Siegel, and there's not a lot of them in the world really, but that can do that kind of thing. But Gary Gordon talks about things that anyone can do. Chelation processes, or chlorella, high-dose vitamin C, EDTA type detox, other chelation type detoxes. And I'm learning more myself on different avenues of detoxing on a regular basis on a cellular level, that's going to slowly pull out of the bone and deep tissue on a cellular level, because every so many years your body it's constantly regenerating, it's constantly, and if you're not putting in and you're pulling out and you're keeping your body pretty clean, eventually what's deep in the bone is going to come out. So some type of detoxification protocol should be mandatory in especially anyone that has mental health issues. That's, a cornerstone in getting better. You can almost bank on that as a guarantee in helping, because once that toxic load is lifted, the body can start healing itself and addressing. The body has miraculous power and healing ability, but it needs to be able to focus on that without being distracted by a problem that could be overwhelming, like toxicity. If it's so preoccupied in pulling toxins out of your body, and the brain's it can eventually become very unhealthy, and it's stuck in a rut, and it's going to fall back into that pattern. And I lived in a foggy daze for most of my life, so I know, but from experience. But I'm trying to. I don't really have my notes really written real well, but I want to get this thing down pat, and this is just a test. I don't even know if I'm going to post this one, but you know, there's other things. Once someone starts doing these things, you know, negative thinking, positive thinking, and that falls back into the connection of the frequencies, and it's all kind of complicated stuff. And some things I may say, if you're not open-minded to a natural approach, some things can sound like quackery, and we're geared mentally in the Western world. What the propaganda and what we're fed as modern ways of doing something, you know, once we hear it enough, we get conditioned. And so we may become closed-minded to out-of-the-box thinking. And I'm not saying believe every thing that you hear or every thing. There's some things that are quackery. But do your research. Do your homework. And I know at the beginning, when you're still pulling out of a mental problem that's overwhelming, you don't have your focus. You don't have your concentration to be doing as much research as you would like. You may have to watch a lot more videos than be able to read until the brain starts clearing up. But once the brain starts clearing up, don't let up. Read. Read and research. And anyone who wants to get better from mental illness can never stop learning. They have to keep this up. Don't just take anything I say for face value. Double, triple check everything I say, every minute detail. And I may be wrong on something. You may correct me and educate me on something that I may not be aware of. I don't know everything, but all I do know is I'm a 110% different person than 4 or 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago, I have a drywall business. There's guys that used to work for me that had a tough time handling my personality. They would walk off job sites, be frustrated dealing with the mood swings and the behavior of negativity that I had. I had a tough time holding down jobs most of my life. And I only got into business because I quit or was fired once in a while from many jobs. And I started my first drywall business in the Akron area in '93. I don't know how old I was, 24, 25. But I've been in business 4 or 5 times. I failed in business a number of times, or was overwhelmed and couldn't deal with the stress of, so I had to get out. But anyway, there's been a major change, and there's a lot of people that have worked for me or been around me in business, people that contractors that sub me out as a drywall man or finisher, drywall finisher, because that's what I mainly do, is hang paint and mud, that didn't want to use me anymore after 1 or 2 episodes of being bipolar. So anyway, there's things that you can do. But starting, with the basics, getting back to what could cause the problem. The Roman Empire fell, they say, because the aristocrats were all highly toxic from lead. They had lead plumbing, leads in their plates and their goblets that they drank from, lead in their makeup for the women, lead everywhere. And in a chapter in this one book, there was a disease that they named after one of their Greek gods that was very negative, a form of poisoning known as Saturnine gout, is taken from the name from the association of Saturn. Was one of the gods of the Romans that was dark and gloomy and irritable. So this one mental illness was named after this irritable god. And so there was a disease that the Romans, you know, I mean, they were very, very toxic. And you'll have to do your own research on it. But that comes out of this one book that I'm reading on Toxicity. But I knew about other things that I read in history about Neuro and his mental illness. But so, you know, getting back to a system, trying to find the root of the problem, and then, you know, if you have the right nutrient-dense diet, you're going to feed your body, and it's going to make the right chemicals, you know, from the minerals and enzymes, and everything in your body is going to be working right. Your body's going to be functioning properly. You also will have to retrain your thinking, because even once you clear up the toxic load, you will have still a tendency for bad patterns of behavior, sometimes in some people. I'm not speaking for everybody, because remember, I said one size does not fit all. But these are just some of the factors that are involved. Neuroplasticity is good news. The brain is changeable. But there may have to be brain exercises that are focus exercises that are done to change bad behaviors. If someone could afford it, bio or neurofeedback, where you're hooked up some probes to your head, or, you know, attached to your head somehow, and you sit in a chair in a relaxed place, and it retrains the brain. And if you can't afford that, maybe something like HoloSync, which Bill Harris is one of the top of that kind of training, that's done with headphones through sound, but it also retrains the brain. And there's other things you can do, you know, that can retrain the brain, that are a form of brain entrainment. There's exercises that are proven fact that can work, which I do every day. Brain yoga, which is a type of exercises that stimulates the brain. Dr. Siegel had me do something with a metronome, because when I was really, really bad, my frontal lobe and cerebral cortex were out of sync, very, very bad with each other. I was so disillusional and disconnected that even just the brain had to learn to connect the front and the back, you know, different parts together. Had to get synchronized again, because they were out of sync. So, you know, something simple as calmly listening to some nature sounds, tapping to the beats of a metronome, you know, in a relaxed setting, could be retraining the brain to be in sync again. And you may have to start slow, depending on how bad you were. But then you can build up to doing it. And there's many, many things that can be done. So maybe this can be informative. And I could get a format and a protocol together. And I've been wanting to get a format and a protocol together. You know, talking about things you can do in more of a detail. And breaking down to more of the dynamics of why the diet heavy in oils, how the brain can change to using more fats versus the sugars. and symptoms that someone may have. You know, you may feel that you can tell you get headaches from wheat, or when you eat sugar, you get really, really so out of whack. You know, caffeine and sugar may be unbearable after you've had some high fructose corn syrup in something, and you may wonder what's going on. You know, I'm starting to realize that some of these foods are affecting me severely, and it's signs of an unhealthy brain. Sugars, you know, once the brain gets corrected and starts getting healthier, not that those things in the diet are good for you, but if you eat a little bit of something with some sugar or wheat and casein are neurotoxins. But if your brain is so bad off, it's going to be more affected by, sensitive to these things. So once the brain is getting healthier, and the brain can get healthier, it won't be so affected by things that are either neurotoxins or unhealthy for the brain. So, but it's good to be concerned even after your brain gets healthier. You still have to understand that these things may not be healthy for you to put in your body, but you won't notice the effects of them even half as dramatic or severe. But to me, this is just a prelude to whetting the appetite, maybe giving someone hope that there's things that they can do. There's tons of herbs that can help people. You know, you can go to websites that have stuff that can relax you. You can, if it's legal in your country or state to use certain things like of the cannabis plant, you know, like I mentioned earlier, because rhodiola has helped me, that adaptogen. There's many adaptogenic herbs that your body may help your body versus a different one for someone else's body, but rhodiola does help me. You know, high doses of vitamin C. You know, most likely any person who's got anxiety problems is going to be burning vitamin C, but you know, and things that zinc is helpful. But each individual, like I said, one size does not fit all. So diet's very important. Toxicity, that's going to be a stem of majority of mental illness. And Gary Gordon has helped many people clear up their ADHD and mental issues with that. And there was people like Linus Pauling that found high doses of certain B vitamins like niacin. He cured people of schizophrenia. But you don't want to have to take these high doses of niacin for the rest of someone's life. But what's the cause? Why is this person's body needing so severely this high dose of niacin? But, you know, and other things that can be done, like I mentioned, you know, retraining the brain. You know, my favorite author, Napoleon Hill, Success to a Positive Mental Attitude, and the connection with thinking and frequencies, and how the mind-body connection there is a very important connection between the brain and the body. The brain controls the whole body via the nervous system and affects everything in the body. You may not realize it, and most people with maybe no outright signs of mental illness may associate anything with their brain with diabetes or cancer or heart problems. But it's all related. The mind-body connection, health holistically, synergistically, But health is a whole issue, and if the brain's not healthy, the nervous system's not healthy, there's going to be effects on the rest of the body. And in some cases, with someone with cancer, they may not realize that connection because it's not promoted. And if it is promoted, some are going to be viewing this as quackery. And I'm not saying you can cure all cancer with positive thinking, but it can surely help. And it has in these blind placebo and these tests that were done. People thinking positive have healed themselves. And there's other, people like Joe, I can't think of his name right now, but Louise Hay talks about a lot about this, and there's books and actually testimonials where people have healed themselves through either only positive thinking or in combination with these things like removing toxicity from the body. So, all aspects of this need to be considered as a whole healing process. Everything together. There's many aspects. So, and I know with me, I have to use all of these. But I know that Dr. Siegel started healing my body, and I was in a very, very bad situation, a very bad place, where I couldn't even work. I had to stop working because I was so sick physically. It wasn't just mental at that point. It was very bad. I was very bad off physically. I lost all my strength. It was like the worst situation of a nervous breakdown. I had brain damage. I mean, it was, I was in a bad place, health-wise. So, pulling back from that, it took a few years to get to where my strength was back and everything was working the way it should, and better, because I'm still I'm still recovering slightly from that situation that happened to me a few years back. But I'm at a point now where I am absolutely convinced that in my testimony, from my case, can you cure yourself of mental illness, or can you be cured? I know a person can be cured of mental illness. The testimonials are proven to that fact. And my testimonial proves in my case, to me, to the 110th degree, that people, even in bad mental health conditions, can be cured, be helped. I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that I would be here telling anyone that can hear me. I mean, I'm at Subway, and I'm talking to a guy named Eric, and he's almost in tears because I'm not ready yet to teach anybody anything, but I'm gung-ho because I want to. And this guy says, I'd follow you. You've got me convinced. So he was very big encouragement to me. Hey, I know I've been wanting to do a YouTube thing and maybe get any of the info that's in my brain out there to help people. And I'm growing. It's a learning process for me. I'm learning as I go. And I've got a ton of books to read. I'm in the middle of reading 3 books right now. I think when it comes to mental illness, whether it's Louise Hay, Joe Dispenza, or Tony Robbins, reading positive, things that can help you with affirmations and building your confidence, and on a mind level, thinking and feeling with a positive attitude, like Napoleon Hill talks about. that's an important aspect to this. So it's a whole process. And I don't know if this is worthy of even being broadcasted on a YouTube channel. I don't know. Maybe there's enough people out there. You know, I've watched videos on it's orthomolecular medicine, which is, I think, nutrition, high doses of vitamins. And I watch some of these other videos on curing mental illness, and I see good factors and good points in them, but I don't see something as a complete picture. And enough things getting to the root of the problem. And that root of the problem is something, you know, like Gary Gordon and others like him that talk about toxicity, neurotoxins. I think that is at the bottom line. But of course, don't take my word for it only. You should go to someone and get some tests done. Whether it's hair sample tests, blood tests, a good natural approach, holistic doctor, homeopathic doctor, you know, that can do these tests, because your body may be higher in certain toxins and may need certain nutrients that Joe Schmo or somebody down the street may not need. And you both may have labels as bipolar. So, or, you know, depression, Tourette's, autism, or, you know, ADHD. So, no two cases are exactly the same. But I feel in a lot of my life, I had a slight form of autism. More like the lines of Asperger's. I related to a lot of, you know, testimonials that I saw on YouTube years ago, and I felt, I feel like that. And I'm labeled as a mental illness. No one ever told me I had Asperger's, and I don't feel I have it now. Because now, you know, like, I don't know if it was 5 months ago, it was the first time I walked into a Walmart and was able to have 2 conversations for a little bit of period, maybe 5-10 minutes, with 2 different people. Most of the time in my life, I had agoraphobia so bad, I was wanting to be in and out of Walmart in no time flat. Definitely not wanting any conversations with anyone. In fact, most of the time, dodging and pretending that no one saw me. I didn't want to have any eye contact with anyone I knew because there was too many people there, the place was too big, and whatever the factors are that trigger that agoraphobia feeling of kind of a suffocation, overwhelming, and you didn't want to be there. In fact, there's many times I never finished my grocery list, you know. So, but, you know, that's, you know, being healed from these problems and not having them anymore, you know, has been, you know, encouraging, life-changing. So, and I'm not done. You know, I still have touches of things, but I can live with what I got right now. Before, it was almost unbearable. Yet times in my life, it didn't feel like I could live with what was going on, which is very common for people with problems. You got suicidal thoughts, and sometimes it's on a daily basis. So, you know, that's one aspect, and I'm not speaking for everyone who's been there or had that kind of problem, but I know in my case, the facts of, you know, how I felt it and why. So I understand, you know, what it's like to be overwhelmed with this deep dark pit that you're at the bottom of, that you feel like you can't get out of. You want so bad to balance a checkbook, and you're in tears, not understanding why your mind will not focus and concentrate. For years, I couldn't balance a checkbook. I wanted to. I was in tears. I attempted it and started it to no avail. Failed. I mean, it would get so bad. It was such a mess. You had to start over from scratch. But I've successfully been balancing a checkbook since '06. Turned my financial life around. I owed the IRS one time $60,000. I was in debt. Bad. I had so many liens on my house, it wasn't even funny. And I bought this house. It was like an old dump. I was very fortunate to find a good deal. But I'd done a lot of work throughout the years to fix it up. But to sell it, I couldn't. So many liens on it because of all the creditors and people that I let things slide because I couldn't concentrate. I wanted to. But now I finally cleared all that up. To the point I don't have any liens on my house anymore. But it took a long time, and the stuff won't happen overnight. It's not no miracle pill, miracle cure. This stuff, depending on how severe and where you're at, and how bad your nerves are. When I started curing myself, there was something that was coming that my nervous system already couldn't stop. And it was already at a point where it was going for a crash. And the crash had to happen, unfortunately. And that's where Dr. Siegel found me, where my body had crashed in a very, very bad situation. But anyway, I can get to that more often sometime down the road. But what I'm trying to say is, there's a cure. I believe there's a cure for all mental illness. I'm a firm believer in this. And I want to put together some more details, maybe direction of where to go, in how step-by-step procedures of things that maybe need to be put together. And I hope I gave enough here for some people to put together some of this in their minds, that they may go off on their own and do some research, find some people, like Dr. Siegel I found, which I went through 3 natural doctors before I found him. The other 3 at that point in my life did not impress me. Many, many, many in the Western medical field did not impress me because I spent a lot of money on a lot of tests, and they basically looked at me and thought I was out of my freaking gourd, which I might have been. But they didn't believe what was going on and what was happening to me, and I was telling the exact truth. I wasn't imagining what was going on with my body at the time because it became very, very physical. So I found no help with hardly anyone for a while there when it was very severe. But there is answers. And even if you're going to some type of severe type nervous breakdown, which is not just in your head, it's affecting your body, which could culminate in a type of brain damage which may appear like dementia or something, because I've heard cases where people have actually lost their mind temporarily, and it's like a dementia. So you can get a brain damage in your brain if it has gone to the point that it's unreversible, where it can hurt the mind, and it can cause a breakdown in the brain, and it may need to heal, and so that healing time needs to be there. But I had it. So, and at that point, I was losing things. I was not myself, and like Dr. Siegel had to have me on things to strengthen the brain connection between like the frontal lobe and the cerebral cortex, so they could be in sync. And of course, pulling out those toxins like crazy. Of course, it's a slow process. I say like crazy, but it was not a fast process. When you're pulling out toxicity on a cellular level, it's a slow process, no matter how it's done, whether it's through chelation or a frequency type situation, it's a slow process. It's on a deep cellular level in your bone marrow, in your fatty cells. But anyway, it won't happen overnight. But once you start seeing and reaping the benefits of this and your mind starts clearing up, you'll be a testimony of your own. And so there's other things that people do, but it's more masking the problem. You can take a herb like rhodiola, 500 milligrams 3 times a day, and that may help you. But what is causing the problem? Just an herb may not cure the problem, like St. John's wort or something. Why has the brain gone awry? And I can almost guarantee the bottom line is toxicity. And if you leave a message to me and tell me, hey, I think you should do something with this, or no, I've had some people tell me that they want to know more about some of the research I've done. So I'm debating on coming up with some, breaking down in sections information they can go to on toxicity and diet and some other avenues of this. Maybe other things that they can do to help the brain. But two important factors to keep in mind are epigenetics and neuroplasticity. That is hope that the brain and the body are changeable. So once these changes take place, it's not going to reverse itself. It's only going to go forward. But we got to keep toxicity out of the body. So if I can elaborate on neuroplasticity, epigenetics, and where you can go to find more information on anything I've spewed out here. It's a ramble. This is a ramble of my mind. I want to help somebody. I would like other people to get helped. There's no reason for someone to be in a deep, dark hole on the bottom of a pit and feel like there's no way out. I want others to feel that there's hope and encouragement along the way as you go, because at the very beginning, it may go slow. But if you are patient and endure through this process, it will be well worth it.